You realize there are 650 billion galaxies in our known universe. That's 650,000 million galaxies. Our Milky Way is small as galaxies go. It's on the smaller side. We're only 100,000 light years across. Light year is the distance light will travel at 186,000 miles per second. Actually, the acceleration, 186,000 miles per second A light year is a long, long distance, and 100,000 light years are an incredible distance, mind-boggling. So, with our galaxy being on the smaller side, and there being 650 billion galaxies in the known universe, it takes an incredible amount of arrogance to think that God made Earth and that's it, and the rest of it was just kind of stuff to amuse us. But most of the organized religions more or less say that. And they say that God made the Earth 6,000 years ago. At least the organized Western type religions do. Now, Buddhism and Hinduism are a little more, even Zoroastrianism, are a little bit more inclusive in the sense that they recognize that there are other places besides Earth. We are not even close to the center of the universe. We're tiny. And yet, on this planet, have evolved self-aware life forms. Human beings, perhaps some of the other great apes, and dolphins, and a few others too. And for us, again, to think that we are so important is total arrogance. All of us owe our existence to whatever conception of God we might have. But that conception of God is not some old man sitting up there on a cloud watching over the earth. And the idea that there ever needed to be offerings to God when God is everything. You can't offer God something that he's already got. Was only a human idea because the humans could then say, the priests, for instance, could then say, well, bring this, offer it to God, offer 1% or 10% of it to God, make a pleasant smell when you burn some of this and things like that, and leave the rest for us. Never come before me, they say, God said, empty-handed. But all that really meant was leave it for us. And they had the ability then to utilize that, and some of them actually used it for good things. Most of it was used to increase the wealth of individuals, or sometimes the priests were working for emperors or people of that nature. Well, enough of the ancient history and why religions are just things that are made up so that people can have power over other people and use them to divide and cause suspicion to arise and things like that to keep us from uniting as a species. But here in the United States, we've been a bastion, a flagship for freedom up until November 8th, 2017, when a man was elected who knew nothing about governance or about people. All he knew was how to gain wealth, as much wealth as he could, at the expense of anyone and everyone else. Oh, he cared about his family to a certain extent, as long as they could help serve his purposes. But Donald Trump was not presidential material. Absolutely not. I spoke before the election about Hillary and about how the Dalai Lama said the Western woman would save civilization, and I still think that's possible. It may not be Hillary, it may be Elizabeth Warren, or it may be some others. Maybe some of you who are listening right now, or all of you as far as that goes. But Donald Trump appointed incompetent people into all the positions. He said he was going to drain the swamp, and in a way he has, because he's emboldened white supremacists and Nazis and people like that who have been stupid enough to come out and identify themselves. We're not going to forget who they are. And eventually these cockroaches are going to have to crawl back under the floorboards, or they're going to have to get squished. Well, I'm thinking about education right now. I myself was a professor at Des Moines Area Community College. And in 2016, we had our 50-year anniversary. I was fortunate enough to keep being a professor at DMAC, teaching microbiology and some other biological classes, until last May of 2016. And I was honored to be able to do that, and I met some wonderful people. Not everybody was great, but most of the people I met were wonderful. And when I started working at DMAC 23 years before I retired, I had read the had read the word that if you find a job you love, you'll never work again. And I agreed. I agree 100% with that. But that's why education is so important to me. And to have a horrible, insane, useless individual like Betsy DeVos appointed as the Secretary of Education is a travesty. All, and I mean all, of the representatives who approved DeVos as Secretary of Education ought to be horsewhipped or tarred and feathered and driven out of Washington on a rail. But since I don't have a horse or tar or even a rail, make your voice heard. Make it clear to those people, these education terrorists, that their dirty tricks will not be allowed. And in 2018, vote every single damn Republican who is running at city, county, state, and national levels out. We as decent, caring individuals became complacent. All of we who might call ourselves liberals, or at least moderate, we didn't vote. And now we see the price of our complacency. The main ones who did vote were the ignorant and easily led and fear-driven fools who voted for Trump and all of the other uncaring Republican worshipers of Mammon, the god of money, and all of the other uncaring evil things that have begun to manifest in the world. The most evil thing they've done is convince some of us that to worship things and complacently play video games or speak of shallow things on our iPhones and Android devices was okay, and we didn't have to worry about anything else. Our government of and by the people would take care of itself, and those in need of services were parasitical individuals unworthy of our concern. But We know in our hearts that that simply isn't true. Well, though we knew those truths in our hearts, again, we became complacent and lazy. The people who were trying to work against common decency and just work to make themselves money, slowly and insidiously convinced us that we didn't have time for politics. And because we would rather not exert ourselves, we bought into the nightmare which they slowly wove around us and remained uninterested in government while behind our backs they played on the fears and cupidity of the small-minded and small-souled individuals who felt betrayed for one reason or another by social programs and political correctness, and who listened to well-crafted words of more educated but dishonorable political commentators like Rush Limbaugh and Ann Coulter, Ron Reagan Jr. and Steve Bannon and Bill O'Reilly and Roger Ailes, and quite a few others too, to slowly poison the souls, hearts, and minds of the more easily corrupted by the belief that, as John Steinbeck was quoted as saying, they were not poor, they were just temporarily embarrassed millionaires, and they therefore needed to support the causes espoused and championed by the wealthy, such as the Koch brothers and DuPont and the Rockefellers and the Hearst and Vanderbilt families. These are all insane for us to think that there's anything good about any of them, because all they care about is money. And if there were some wealthy persons like the Soros family or Kennedy's or Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, the gods which they worshipped had the means to turn them away from any ideas put forth by these wealthy persons, because decent people always at first have a weakness which the unscrupulous can prey upon. And that weakness, actually is a strength, but it takes time, is the belief that there's good in everyone. If you give them a chance to demonstrate it, and by the time the Hitlers or Stalins or Mussolinis or DuPonts or Kochs or Hearsts or Vanderbilts and Trumps are finally seen for what they are, which is irredeemable, they have almost always done tremendous harm and have provided escape routes for themselves, and that's the problem. They're going to get away, or at least some of them will, so that they can wait for a while and then slowly begin feeding their bilious thoughts to a new generation, and it begins all over again. How do we as a species, because I include all Homo sapiens individuals here, prevent them from overtaking our common sense and common decency again? What do we do to guard against the complacency? For one thing, we listen to our consciences. First, do no harm. Do no harm to your species or to other species, to your environment or your planet. Follow the golden rule, which means do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Not as you're afraid they're going to do to you, but as you would wish they would do with you. If anyone in power in a religious or governmental organization counsels you or anyone that you know to do anything that goes against their conscience or against the golden rule, then you know that at best they're misguided, and at worst they're evil or under the influence of evil. It's our solemn duty as members of the human race to remove those persons from their powerful position and, if possible, re-educate them. And if they will not be re-educated, place them in an area where they can do no harm to innocent persons or other life forms, or to the environment, or even to themselves. For those of us who have kids or have any humanity in such a horrendous act as what occurred last evening in Manchester, United Kingdom, this is the next day, May 23rd, 2017, it makes us wonder how even such people can sanction the killing of basically innocent children. But then I remember that 1,000 children, more or less, die of starvation every night in this world when those persons have the capacity to feed them. And I understand that blowing up a few innocent kids most likely doesn't bother them at all. That is all the more reason we have to remove them. The persons in positions where they influence persons, such as the suicide bomber who killed the kids at the Ariana concert, are truly evil and cowardly because they work from the shadows and never risk exposure and use religion or some other sort of mental ensnarement to convince people like the actual bomber that what they are doing has some sort of noble purpose. And they'll receive the reward in heaven, another pipe dream. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today, thanks John Lennon. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one, and I know I'm not. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will be as one, and that is my solemn hope and my solemn wish, and I will do everything, this is my solemn vow, to make it so. Thank you for listening to this. I know it was long, but I hope it was helpful. I'll do another again. Have a good day. Peace be unto you and to all you love. Bye.